Horus himself, where they talk about this war that's going on in the Nile Valley, even before Mendes even comes in, and they kick these people all out in Europe. You see? So it's something about this holes in all of this stuff. And so what we need to do is we need to go all the way back and find out what's going on with this whole beast thing. Let's trace this thing back. Number one, if you was talking to C. Freeman L., he talks about the Akashic records. What these Akashic records is, right in your own memory bank. If you go high enough to get to the God state, there's a whole vast body of knowledge that will open up to you. You see? And we do know that the original people at least have access to this. The white boys can't do it. And all. Elijah Muhammad hit on this 66 trillion years of history, and we laughed at this stuff. You know, in his message to the black man, what, 1967 or 68, he hits on this stuff, and we go, oh, this is the most ridiculous, bizarre type of history. And we disregard it. We didn't know that there's some stuff called Akashic records. And this contactee, Master Farad Muhammad, as well as his own self going to a high God state later on, because if you look at the message to the black man and look at the theology of time that just came out, it's a great piece of work. And this is coming from his mind, Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But the teachings, the supreme wisdoms at first, is coming from Master Farad. He writes this book, and we think it's some gross amount of just mythology. The New York Times says that he's a master psychologist. And we take that as, well, he's just a psychologist. He knew the history of his people. Here's a book. It's been out of print. It just came back in, but it was out of print. It was in Health Research, which is a company that prints out-of-print books. Now, here's a guy, Rudolf Steiner, who is one of the great masters of the occult. Right? One of the great masters. Let that brother in, if you want to come on in. Tell him to come on in. Yeah. One of the great masters of the occult, Rudolf Steiner. And the name of this book is called Atlantis and Lemuria. And all. Now, he has a whole section of books on him. Not only does he have books on him, he has books, other people writing on his theories. And all. And in his book, he says this book is coming from the Akashic records. And when I'm looking in this book, the last chapter, remember that Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that was it one of the patriarchs blew the moon from the earth. You heard that before. Which one was it? Grandfather Shabazz or one of those? I can't think of who it was. The blew the moon from the earth. Oh, we laughed at that. Even Farrakhan in 1991, Savior's Day, repeats this. And I said, oh, wow. Here's the cracker right here talking about it in his last chapter. The separation from the moon and the earth. Separation from the moon and the earth. In here he talks about, in Atlantis, we have Manu, you say Manu or Yakub, whatever, coming from his Akashic records, creates this germ, makes this germ to create a new race of men, you see. But see, this was a white boy that wrote this in 1922, you see. And years before the message to the black man, saying the same thing. But as usual, we got to validate things through the white boys and all. We understand that. Now, want to go to, and I know where this stuff is now, my pictures. We want to go to the Atlantean period. My friend right here that does research with me, his name is Robert Calloway. He'll be speaking here soon. Oh, you wanted to introduce me, buddy?
Sorry.
If you want to hear him, he's going to be dropping the Wednesday night at Clark College with me. We got a series going on at Clark, and he's going to be dropping on the cycles, which we need to know about. It's free, so come out. It's in the boys' dormitory, Frawley Hall. Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. We got a little forum going on with a group of young scholars, and we going at it. He's going to be dropping on the cycles. You got to understand all this about the cycles. But anyway, you might pass this round, and I can also give you a copy of this. That's the TAMA-HU, the looks of them. Some of you got some at the Revolution 101 conference. Now I might give you a copy of that before we get out of here. You see that there's a white boy in there. You can tell the white boy. There's a white boy in there that's the TAMA-HU, and you get some picture of what those 4 men at the Temple of Seti I was. But a partner and I, well, number one, Gerald Massey explains that this whole Atlantis period, this whole Atlantis that they're talking about, number one, says that we understand that when you talk about water and a place that's submerged under water, that comes from the whole flood thing. If you trace that flood myth back from Hemmitt, which is the oldest part of this civilization that we know of the civilization on this earth, you trace that, you would trace it all the way back to the deluge of the Nile, around the Tanzania, what you call it, Lake Nyanza, what's that? Right, not the Aswan, on down. They call it Lake Victoria now. I don't want to use that word. Uganda, that area where you have the Twa people and all that, they have a great deluge and a flood. So Massey traces it back to there. We later on trace this thing, me and my partner, say, well, wait a minute, this Atlantis is mainly a code word, because we also know that our Afrocentric scholars tell us about continental drift, where you had one continent, and Asa Hilliard did a whole lecture on that back in 1990. Continental drift, where you'd have this one mass land, and this one mass land that later on drifts. So we trace Atlantis back to a code word meaning the land when the black man ruled this entire earth. That sounds more still going back to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Told you about that before. You see. Now they want to put this fictitious place in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean that didn't have anything to do with Hemmitt at first and say, hey, this is popular. But either way, like my brother back here said, it's still all black people. You see, it's still all black people. But because we do know that in all of the literature on the literatures that's not so spooky, that's on Atlantis, all of that literature, they all say that at one time, all the pineal glands, which is the third eye or the black dot, was open in all the people at one time. We'll go into that and explain that. But the point is, the mythology is what I'm interested in. See, if we're going to trace this thing, we got to trace this thing from the mythology. And the oldest mythology that we can even think about is the mythology. If you want to picture this, I always pass this out. This calendar's been giving me good luck ever since I've been lecturing in the Temple of Dendera. I'm going to pass that round, show people that calendar. This is the oldest mythology that we know of, because it's even older than the pantheon that we know of in dynastic Kemet or pre-dynastic Kemet. It's older than that. In that zodiac, we have the first primordial god, Apit Atiret, which means earth, or Apit, which is a water cow, a pregnant hippopotamus, the pregnant hippopotamus meaning the womb, and the first deity is a woman. Now let's get this straight.
That's right.
Because I had an argument with a brother that called me and we argued about 3 nights. Let's get this straight. We got to be honest if we're going to get out of this mess.
That's right.
The first deity known to mankind all over the world is not a group of deities, it's not a large pantheon at first, it's one prototypical African woman. In Africa, being that they put the mythology in the nature of animals, because they know that thousands of years cultures will change, people will change, but animals will never change. They symbolize the pregnant black woman as a hippopotamus god, which is Apit. This time, Tyre. This time she has no consort. You gotta have a god, you gotta have a goddess. There's no god. It's only this woman. So now what this means, if it's not a consort, this is what this means. This means one thing. There's no such thing as a male principle. It's only a female principle with the masculine half of the female principle. We know that's embodied in the black woman already. Because we do know the baby that's born is female first before it develops into a male or female. So the half, there's no such thing as a male principle. It's the masculine half of the feminine principle. You see? So this first consort, or the first deity, is the black woman. I always get excited. Why? Because I was raised by 2 black women. My father died in 1970. I was raised by my grandmother, who was hell on wheels. She didn't take no stuff. And I was raised by my mother. who didn't take no stuff. I would much rather have a father for them two doggone disciplinarians. You see what I'm saying? These are my two brothers right here. Can I bear witness? They whipped that ass. Good. They whipped that ass. And right now, then they get, you know, when you get older, they don't beat you no more, but they'll take, it's even worse, your mother might as well take a switch. You can handle that. But they might take something like the TV and throw at you. And you go, wait, this woman is fool. She takes something big and heavy, so I can't hurt it with the switch no more, so I'll take the TV and throw it. So